Hey, it's JUCK. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth. We're Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw, and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. There I am. What's going on, guys? How we doing? Welcome in to Buckeye Huddle Primetime Live. Appreciate you so much for joining me. So happy that you could come in on a Wednesday. Chris, what's going on, brother? How we doing? Richie Dubs, what's up, bro? The Bucks, the defending national champions, and we're coming into this season, right? We expected a little bit of change here, maybe a little bit of change on the defense. And right out of the gate, we see that it is a totally different defense, right? Totally different. Thought maybe a little bit more different than we were going to see moving forward just for the Texas game. Maybe a couple of extra wrinkles. But there's a lot of changes. The offense looks different. Who's getting on the field looks very different when we look at this freshman class. And I want to get into that freshman class today. We've also got some recruiting news, the class of 2026. This class, much maligned. Been a lot of people very angry about this class. Obviously, some very public misses in this class. But it is about to do something that has not been done for 7 years. 7 years. The class of 2026 about to do something that we have not seen since 2019. And I can't believe it. Going to be really fun. We'll talk about that in a few. Also, a little bit of recruiting news about a couple flip candidates. And what about this weekend? No Buckeyes. What are we going to do? We've got some games to watch, some really consequential games in the Big Ten. I'm going to be streaming over at JUCK on Bucks for one of those blocks. We'll decide which one. But there are some really consequential games in each time slot. So let's all please like the show. Subscribe to the Buckeye Huddle channel where we bring you like nothing but the best Ohio State coverage from recruiting to film breakdowns, pregame, postgame, all the pressers, everything all year round, even articles, guys. Look, I published 2 articles today on BuckeyeHuddle.com. You can go check those out. I'm becoming a little journalist. How about that? But the 2025 class of Ohio State Buckeyes is one that I will like forever be incredibly attached to, right? It's the first class that I ever covered when I started my show. I started the show in the off season, so there was no football and it was all recruiting. And I just got to know a lot of these guys, and it's just an unbelievable collection of young guys. Also an incredibly talented group, and they look sensational so far. Now on paper, that class finished 5th in the country. I suspect when we look back after, 2-3 years from now, it's going to be, the number 1 or number 2 class because they just look unbelievable. They did hold the number 1 slot for quite a while, probably longer than anybody else did the entire cycle. They ended up losing that at the end and then dropping down to 5th. That happens every year, it seems, for the Buckeyes, but it's an unbelievably loaded class. And we are certainly seeing that Ohio State has nailed a lot of those evaluations. And to be a successful program in this era, you have got to nail your evaluations, particularly at the top of the class. And what are we seeing now out of these 2025 freshmen? It's incredible by comparison. And I want to take you back real quick just to make my point here. Let's go back to 2023. 2023, Kyle McCord year, the Buckeyes brought in the 4th rated class in the country. So an equally talented class on paper. And I want to go through some of those names in 2023. Take yourself back to that season and think about these guys and what you saw out of them on the field. And we can start with the 2 5-stars in the class. Brandon Innis, Carnell Tate, both 5 stars. Carnell by 247 in Rivals, BI by Rivals. We saw Carnell. He caught about 27 balls that year or something, maybe 17, 27, one of those two. We definitely could tell, okay, he's going to be a dude. We didn't see anything out of BI. But the other top 100 players in that class, Jermaine Matthews, Noah Rogers, Calvin Simpson-Hunt, Jason Moore, Luke Montgomery, Josh Mickens. Yes, he was a top 100 player. You also had Jelani Thurman, Malik Hartford, Arvell Reese, Lincoln Keenholz, Will Smith, Josh Padilla, Caden McDonald, Jaden Bonsu, Austin Sareveld, Cedric Hawkins, Bryson Rogers, and Miles Walker. Very few of those guys played. Very, very few. And maybe we thought there was going to be a lot of guys that were going to pan out from that class, but we didn't get to see them on the field. And we just got to hear, okay, this is what's happening in practice with this guy, with that guy. We didn't get to see him out there. And as we rolled into the class of 2024, thinking back to last year, the class was led by Jeremiah Smith, Edric Houston, Aaron Scott, Mylan Graham, Aaron Noland, each one of those guys a 5-star by at least one service. Other top 100 players last year included Bryce West, Jimmy DePeoples, Garrett Stover, Dominic Kirks, Ian Moore. Then you had Peyton Pierce, Gabe Van Sickle, Max LeBlanc, the Armstrong twins, Miles Lockhart, Jalen McClain, Toe Witten, Eric Mensa, Leroy Roker, Sam Williams-Dixon. Who do you recall making an impact on the field early last year? Definitely Jeremiah, definitely Edric Houston. We definitely saw James Peoples on the field enough to know, okay, he's going to be a future player in the backfield. Jalen McClain certainly popped. Four guys that I can recall off the top of my head. All four of those guys we saw in the field and said, those guys are going to be contributors. Those guys are going to be dudes moving forward at Ohio State, and the rest of them, just like the class of 2023, we're just hearing what we're hearing from reports, etc. Now, let's go to the class of 2025 because this is just insane. And we're seeing a big change in how Ohio State is operating here. And I want to go over the players that we can unequivocally say, that guy's a hit, that guy's a contributor, and we know that for sure because we're seeing it on the field. Guys that are not just getting special teams reps, but guys that are getting reps. The number one player in the class, Tavian St. Clair, is a quarterback, and hopefully we don't see him play this year or next year substantial minutes. If that happens, that means something went wrong. That's unique to his position. And another position, similarly, offensive tackle, Carter Lowe, another very highly rated guy for the Bucks. And as we sit here today looking at Phillip Daniels and Austin Sareveld as the two tackles on this team, I'm going to go ahead and assume that next year we're looking at the same crew. And that is excellent because those two are looking great to start the year. They're going to be really good towards the end of the year. And the Bucks will roll into 2026 with two experienced, excellent tackles. And that's really exciting. So Tavian, the tackles, Carter Lowe's not going to play. That's cool. But let's move on to the next rated guy in the class after Tavian St. Clair. That's Devin Sanchez, the number 2 player in the class, the number 1 corner in the country. Never a doubt, right? Never a doubt. Devin was the perfect recruit. And if you asked AI to draw you up the perfect corner, it's Devin Sanchez, not just physically gifted and perfectly built for the position, but a guy who wants to be great, who came across the country to come to Ohio State to be great. Zero problem recruit, never flirted with anybody after he committed, and a guy who could have gone after he committed to Ohio State to get a huge payday somewhere, a ridiculous payday. And then he gets onto campus and he just wants to work his butt off relentlessly. And all of a sudden, this guy finds his way on the field against Texas in the first game of his freshman year against the number 1 or number 3 in a 1-3 matchup. And now that we've seen him a couple of times, like we can say with 100% certainty, this guy is on track to obviously be a hit, right? But probably a first rounder, maybe a top 10 type of guy. He's just great. The third ranked prospect in that class, 5-star by On3 and 247, was Quincy Porter. Now, Brian Hartline talked yesterday, and Brian Hartline was talking about playing depth. Talked about some other things that I want to get into a little later, but I want you to hear what he had to say about playing depth. Here's Hartline yesterday at the press conference.
Happy with where your wide receiver depth is outside of those 3 right now?
Yeah, I think really happy. I think, frankly, in my mind, got to continue to look for other opportunities to get more kind of rolling in there. I think I'd like to have more guys in there playing on Saturdays. And then that has to be worked on through the week. When you get to game time, especially being up top. It's a little more difficult. I felt that a little bit of getting guys going because I'm upstairs a little bit. Got to get that fixed, and we'll get that fixed. But that's probably one thing of area of growth. The guys are doing a good job. We're going to get more of those guys in the game.
So this is often a talking point with Brian Hartline and Buckeye fans, playing depth. And I thought it was interesting that, he admitted right there that, okay, it's been a little bit of a difficult adjustment up in the booth for me. I'm not down with the guys, being able to get them ready and get them ready to go. So you got to plan ahead during the week, who's going to come in. And I would have thought that with Devin Jordan, who he's worked with, for a while now, that would have been already worked out, but apparently it's not. He said they'll get it fixed. I think they'll get it fixed. But who are the next guys that are ready that he's talking about? Well, you would have to say that's first Bryson Rogers in the slot coming in for Brandon Innis. And then behind Jeremiah, that's Quincy Porter, freshman Quincy Porter. Behind Carnell, Mylan Graham. That's kind of the way I think it looks. And that's the three that are definitely ready to roll. And Hartline, those comments and a few others he made yesterday, we'll get back to in a few because I think it was interesting. Something else he said. But when we talk about Quincy Porter, I think what we will see the rest of this season is maybe enough action that we see that 17 to 27 receptions like we saw from Carnell his freshman year. Quincy Porter is absolutely ready to roll. Another 2025 true freshman who's going to come in and contribute in some capacity. The next guy, linebacker Riley Pettijohn, 5-star by Rivals. You got three main dogs, Arvell, Sonny, and Peyton Pierce, and some assumed Garrett Stover would be the next guy up. But it's clear that Riley Pettijohn has passed him now, and Riley has shown he's absolutely ready to play college football at a very high level. I don't recall ever seeing a freshman win defensive player of a game at Ohio State. Riley Pettijohn did it against Grambling. He's now up to 230 pounds. Sideline to sideline, ridiculously fast. And we've seen him meet somebody in the hole, and it was not good for that somebody. So it's clear that Riley is not only a hit and a big contributor, he's going to be a star, and he's going to play as a true freshman, logging 30 snaps already on the year in just the last 2 games. Next up, top 100 overall, safety Fahim Delane. Now, when we looked at the safeties this year, there was the big battle between Jalen McClain, Malik Hartford, who was going to play. Leroy Roker was also ahead of Fahim Delane. He's not anymore. Fahim is blown by Leroy Roker. In fact, Fahim Delane has played just about as much as Malik Hartford. Malik with 38 snaps, Fahim with 31. So somewhat quietly, as we've not seen Fahim talked about a lot, he's a stud. He was the number 1 safety on the Buckeyes board. Bona fide contributor this year. We're going to see him continue to play, I think. And that is pretty unique right there. Pretty unique. I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps creeping up on Malik Hartford. The dude is really, really gifted. They seem to love him. And interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff when we're seeing all these guys get on the field. That's the very, very top of the class. Now, as you go down a little bit further, outside the one more guy in the top 100, Zion Grady. Zion Grady, I think we all thought this guy could potentially be an integral part in the room at edge, but it's still pretty loaded, right? Not with super high-end guys at the time we were thinking. You got Kenyatta and you got Curry. You bring in Bo Atkinson, and that 3 looks like your top 3. Then you got CJ Hicks. You got Logan George. Is there really room for Zion Grady? Well, what have we seen out of transfer Logan George? He has not been on the injury report, but he hasn't played. Didn't play the first 2 games. He's played, like 5 snaps on the year, 8 snaps. Zion Grady has played 15 now. And obviously we've already seen him flash. He looked really good in there. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he surpasses Logan George here soon, if he hasn't already. That's a big unknown. But what we do know is he's a dude. That's a clear hit. That's a clear contributor. Next up, Anthony Turbo Rogers. We've yet to see anything out of him. He came late, so we'll see. The next guy on the list, Bo Jackson. And Bo is obviously, we don't even need to talk about him, but surely the very best running back on this team. There's no doubt about that. Bo, quite literally, in my opinion, has saved the running game in the early part of this season. if you didn't have Bo's numbers in there, you would have 2 running backs in Peoples and Donaldson that are averaging 4.8 yards a carry. So less than the 5-yard threshold, a combined only 3 yards after contact. And that's not good enough. Add in Bo Jackson, and the group together is averaging 6.75 yards a carry, 5 yards after contact. That's how much of a difference he makes, from 4.8 to 6.75 yards, and ups your yards after contact from 3 to 5. That's insane. I honestly think the conversation we would be hearing all over Buckeye Nation is what happened to the offensive line. That's the conversation we would be hearing had Bo not gotten a chance to do what he's done. And really, it's the running backs that have not been getting it done, as the line's been doing pretty doggone good, but Bo has elevated them. Now, Peoples seem to be coming on a little more at the in the second half of the last game, so we'll see if that continues, which is good. Donaldson has not done near good enough. We're talking about a guy with a 5% broken tackle rate. I think like last year at West Virginia, he was like 15 to 17. This basically means 9.5 out of 10 times the guy that makes first contact with him brings him to the ground. That's not good enough for a power back. Next up, Epi Satanile. Now, Epi hasn't shown us enough yet on the field, but Epi's going to be a dude, right? But he's not shown it yet. So for these circumstances and for my argument here, we can't count him. But then we got TJ Alford. TJ has played 20 snaps so far, 3 tackles, 1 missed tackle. TJ's absolutely a dude. He's absolutely a dude. He's a little bit trapped out of playing time, but I think he's going to be tapped to play the Arvell role in the defense next year. And he's not quite as dynamic as Arvell. Nobody is. Not quite as fast, not quite as big, but he's going to be really, really good in that role. Next guy on the board, Jarquez Carter, and Jarquez is absolutely playing this year. A bona fide dude. He's played in all 3 games, including the second to last possession against Texas in crunch time, right? And we haven't seen him make a big defining play yet. But when we look at the depth chart on the defensive line, Jason Moore, the 3rd-year 3 tech, has been injured, so he's not played. Now, I personally thought coming into the season that Jarquez was already overtaking him. And I believe now that certainly Jason Moore is not getting that spot back. So what we've got now, Jarquez Carter right behind Edric Houston, Taiwan Malone. And Jarquez will continue to play and continue to earn more time. That's a hit. That's a bona fide dude. Then we got BP Miller. Now, BP, I love. Incredible athlete, converted quarterback to wide receiver. Looks very unnatural at wide receiver. Makes some ridiculous catches, but he's got a long way to go. So we're on the developmental track with BP. Next up, Nate Roberts. Are you kidding me with Nate? The big Oklahoma tight end has not only played a lot of tight end on the field for the team, he is now the team's fullback, and they've used him quite a bit in this role, which is pretty cool. He is an excellent blocker at 6'5", 240. He's athletic with good hands, 34 total snaps this year, and they totally trust him. He's an absolute dog. I love it. I love it. So moving on, we've got tight end Brody Lennon. Now, we can't say for sure, right? We haven't seen him on the field enough yet, but I can say with a little bit of certainty that he's already passed Max LeBlanc. And I can also say that he's a total freak show athlete. Only played 6 snaps. I think he's going to be a great tight end for Ohio State, but not making our list here. Phillip Bell. Phillip Bell, after those 6 wide receivers we talked about, is the next guy up. Phil's ready, I think. Phil is absolutely ready. Super polished. When I was down at practice, this guy was flashing everywhere, and he is just a total dude. Really surprised me. I was not nearly as high on him as I should have been because the guy is just definitely ready to go. And there's a potential we could see him. There's not a need, but he might be one of these guys that just he's earned it. So maybe we see it, later on in the season. We did see David Adolph, right? We saw David Adolph come in and play, which was really cool for David Adolph. A lot of people flipped out about that. They want to see Mylan Graham, right? Everybody wants to see Mylan. And David Adolph comes in earlier in the game. Now, I think he only played a couple snaps, but David Adolph has earned it. He's earned it. And don't forget, man, that's really a dude, like for real. This 6'5" guy right there who can move and has hands. So interesting stuff there. Now, the bottom 10 can make or break the class. Generally, you only get about 3 guys who end up being contributors in the bottom 10. But in this new era of the transfer portal, we haven't really seen any of these bottom 10 guys get much run in this class. But I think we can say with almost certainty that there are 2 guys at the bottom of that class that are hits. But when we look at these guys in the bottom 10, offensive linemen, Jake Cook, Javon McFadden, defensive lineman, Max Roy, Trajan Odom, secondary players, Deshaun Stewart, Jordan Woods, Cody Haddad, linebacker, Eli Lee, wide receiver, Des Jones, and running back, Isaiah West. So you got a lot of developmental guys at the bottom 10 here. I like a lot of these guys. None of them are we going to see this year, except for Isaiah West. We saw Isaiah when he was in the game. I thought he looked excellent. We can't say he's a bona fide dude yet, right? Not enough on the field to say that. I strongly suspect we will see him more as the season goes on. So what does that leave us? We had 4 guys that played in 2024 that we could say, all right, that guy's a hit. We can see it out on the field. He's playing. When we look at 2025, we have seen and will continue to see Devin Sanchez, Riley Pettijohn, Fahim Delane, Zion Grady, Bo Jackson, Jarquez Carter, Nate Roberts, and Quincy Porter. That is 8 freshmen that we can say that's a bona fide dude. We can see it on the field, on a college football field, and we're going to continue to see it. That's crazy. Add in Isaiah West, who I think we are going to see at some point this year start to kind of chip into somebody's carries. That could be 9 potential guys here. And not only does that mean they have done just the most phenomenal job ever with this class of 2025, but it shows us something is different here, right? What is it? I mean, it's great stuff. I love it. But seeing these freshmen play, what is it a result of? Is it out of necessity, misses, transfers, lack of numbers, a way to incentivize freshmen to stay? I think it's a little bit of all of the above. And each guy tells a little bit of a different story. Like when we look at Jarquez Carter, for instance, Jarquez Carter shouldn't be playing. Listen, an interior defensive lineman should not be playing. What's that the result of? It's the result of Hero Canoe leaving, Jason Moore not being what he's supposed to be. He shouldn't be playing, but he is. He is, and he's going to continue to. Bo Jackson. Bo should be blocked out this year, just like Peoples was last year. He should be. Now, he's just a little too damn good for them to keep off the field, and you could say the same for Devin Sanchez, right? Though you did kind of need Devin Sanchez in the last game. He's just too damn good to keep off the field. Zion Grady, Quincy Porter, they're also guys that are doing so well that they're just, all right, this guy's going to earn his way onto the field. We got to get him some reps. I think Zion Grady could give you the potential to upgrade a little bit over a couple of guys. That's my opinion. We'll see as we go. But we're seeing a lot of different reasons as to why these guys are playing. But the bottom line is you have got to nail your evaluation, and you got to nail your dudes to allow this to happen. And we're seeing them absolutely nail their dudes. The class of 2025 is amazing. Ohio State used to have such a reluctance to play young guys, leaning on seniority above everything else. And the whole transfer portal era has changed this. Not just, I don't think, the fear of losing guys, but the fact that you do lose guys over time, and guys that you invested in time and development, like a Hero Canoe leaves, and it just kind of backs everything up. Okay, now you're bringing this guy. What if this guy's not ready or not good enough? Now you're looking to this younger guy. The thing is, it's kind of a problem, but everybody's dealing with it. And to me, when everybody's dealing with it on the same playing field, like, this is advantage Buckeyes here. So the class of 2025 is an absolute beast of a class. That's for sure. But I think that we're going to continue to see moving forward a lot more of these freshman involved classes. Hopefully that, you're hitting on your evals and you're nailing it at the top of the class. We will go over the top of the 2026 class in a little bit. Let's all like the show. I got a couple super chats to get to. Jacob Dixon. What's up, Jacob? Thanks for the super chat, buddy. $4.99. What does giving Sanchez more reps look like in big games? Only in dimes so much? Doesn't feel like Matthews or Iggy should ever be taken off the field. So a lot of people have been talking about the potential of, well, for one, is Lorenzo healthy? Is he ready to come back at nickel? Because what they did when Lorenzo went out was move Matthews down to nickel and bring Sanchez in at corner. There's a lot of people who want to see that full time. I personally don't think that that's a possibility because Jermaine Matthews is not gonna look. I had this conversation in the offseason. A lot of people said, look, IGB is perfect for the nickel. He's perfect for the nickel. Okay, maybe physically he is perfect for the nickel, but IGB is a corner who came back and told us why he came back. Why did he come back? He wants to get drafted in the first round, maybe the second round. He's not going to do that at nickel, right? So people were telling me, well, doesn't matter. This is about the team. Well, sure, it is in theory. These are also people, right? And you also don't know the conversations that took place before he had that conversation and said, I want to come back. Jermaine Matthews, a potential first-round corner. I don't think that Jermaine Matthews is just going to be like, okay, cool, I'm going to play nickel now. The difference in financial value, draft stock from outside corner to nickel is huge. And no, it doesn't increase your value to stick him at nickel. He's got to show at corner that he can go up against Oregon and he can go up against Penn State. He can go up against in the playoffs against the playoff teams at corner to get drafted in the first round. Like, these are real people and they're not chess pieces is what I'm saying. So I just think that there is a little more issue to it than some make it out to be. Like, it's not just like, I'm the boss, I'm telling you what to do. That's not really how this works. I mean, it is, but then you also got a hothead that you're telling to go do that. I mean, it's just not going to work. But yeah, we'll see more of the dime. And there is potential, I think, to work this look in with Matthews at nickel, bringing in Sanchez. But to say like, all right, we're not going to start Lorenzo anymore, we're just going to move to this permanently, I don't think there's a chance in hell that happens. I really don't. But appreciate the question, my man. Jake D, didn't we shave CJ down to 230? CJ got down to 227 or 226. So much lighter. And one of the guys was talking to me the other day thinking, so this guy is a lot lighter now, still running like he's much heavier, and he's not quite getting it done. Jake says, okay, so about 10 more than Bo. That's what I thought. And the answer to that is no, Jake. Bo is 223. CJ is 4 pounds heavier than Bo. Which is why when people tell me you need Bo or you need CJ down at the goal line because he's the big bruiser, I know it might not look that way, but Bo's the same size. The same size. What do you mean pause? Did I say something out of line? That's my son there, guys. That's my son. I don't know what he's talking about. Jake thinks Sanchez is just that damn good. You can't keep him off the field. Can't forget a lot of our idiotic fans were upset Iggy came back, which I thought was insane. It was insane. It was totally insane, but you get it, right? Like the penalties got people so mad that they couldn't see past it. And they forgot that this guy was an excellent player, and he is an excellent player. He's a corner that's big, long, with attitude, and he's always physical. He's always in on tackles, which you love out of a corner. We've had so many soft corners. What's up, E? As long as Iggy keeps the holding down, he'll be just fine, even better than fine. He's awesome. He is awesome. All right, moving along. I want to get back to that Hartline conversation when it pertains to Brandon Innis, right? Brandon Innis has obviously got a ton of crap. I don't know if you guys have been on any of the socials this week, but people are absolutely crushing Brandon Innis. Brandon Innis obviously didn't have a catch, but he also didn't have a target, right? Usually when you see a wide receiver get cooked, it's because he's dropped a ball, fumbled a ball, missed a block that blew up a play. Innis didn't do any of that. Innis just didn't get targeted. And the biggest kicker, Mylan Graham is on the bench. Mylan Graham is on the bench. People want to see Mylan Graham. Now, I did find it interesting. Shout out to my homie Ron James for pointing this out. Mylan Graham got the most snaps of any wide receiver in the Grambling game. Number one. What did he do in that Grambling game? What did Mylan Graham do in the Grambling game? I'll let you look that up. You can get back to me. But the point is, Brandon Innis got no targets from Julian Sayin, and he's only got 5 catches on the year. And people are taking this to mean Brandon Innis is not just a bust, but he's terrible. Somebody else needs to be more dynamic in there. And I'm just not quite getting it. My thought was, after my original watch, when I came on here on Monday night, was the coverage took him away for the most part, or he was just not early on in Julian's progression and he was firing it off before he got to him. And we also know that it's pretty clear Jeremiah Smith is Julian Sayin's security blanket. Now, most young quarterbacks usually have a security blanket, right? They usually get acclimated to their tight end or their slot, and they rely on that as they're learning. And then they start to open it up a little bit more as they go. Julian Sayin, it's Jeremiah. He's hitting him on the short stuff. He's hitting him on the intermediate stuff. He's taking it long to him and Carnell. After rewatching the game, we also saw a ton of tight ends. 42% of the time, we saw 12 or 13 personnel. Now, every time that happens, that takes the slot off the field. In 13 personnel, it takes a wide receiver off the field as well. So Brandon Innis didn't play near as much as any of these guys. He hasn't in any of these games. But just in the most recent game against Ohio, 42%, 2 or 3 tight ends. Brandon, in that game, was open a lot in zone coverage. He definitely was open plenty of times. Ohio dictated where Julian was throwing the ball in that zone. So basically, if the safety drops down to cover Innis, Julian, ball goes long to Carnell or JJ, right? If the safety goes back to cover them, ball goes short to the slot receiver or the tight end. So they were dictating in their zone where Julian threw the ball. And for whatever reason, who knows why, they seem more focused on taking away the slot and the short stuff and letting Julian go longer to the big dogs. And well, he's going to take that every time. And we know that Julian, he wasn't perfect. Ryan Day talked about him not being perfect. And we know that Innis was wide open for a touchdown in the red zone. Ryan Day talked about that at the press conference. He also talked about CJ Donaldson being wide open on that little flare to the right. That could have been a touchdown. Julian didn't pull the trigger on it. But my thought the other day was, if we asked Brian Hartline about Brandon Innis, he would probably say, Brandon Innis played great. So yesterday I was down at the press conference. Sure enough, this came up not once, but twice. The first time Brian Hartline said, yeah, he played great, and it was not a super in-depth answer. The second time, he went on to talk in a little more depth about it. I thought it was a fantastic way to explain it the way he did, and I want to play it for you guys. Despite not getting any targets, he doesn't expect it to stay that way. But this is what Hartline had to say about Innis so far and in the Ohio game.
Even means. Leave it, Doctor.
Just kind of following up on the Brandon Innis thing. The slot position has just been such a high usage spot here for so long, and so for Brandon to not necessarily have a catch, a position that's high usage. Did you still think he had a good football game, even if the ball wasn't necessarily in his hands?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's kind of like whether you still play a really good basketball game, even though maybe you didn't score. It's like those elite basketball players talk about, to take a shot. It takes 1 or 2 seconds. So to let 10 seconds, 5 missed shots impact 30 minutes of play, it's just a small-minded approach. So even though there may not be a catch, I mean, the impact of getting the right blocks and being in the right spots and everything that we do ultimately dictates whether you have a good game or not. And when you have 110 yards and on 5 catches, but you had a lot of MAs, you did not have a good football game, even though everybody wants to praise you. But that's not how this is built. Like, and ultimately, we are judged by, at least individually, right? We are judged on doing things others don't do, right? I mean, if you're able to do it and so is he, then you're replaceable, right? So ultimately you're trying to do things that the other guys can't do or won't do or haven't done. And that's what sports is all about. The individual being different than his peer, being elevated than his peer, and then the collective as a group being a different than the other team and our team versus their team. So Brandon, to answer your question long-windedly, Brandon's done a great job in his job description, regardless of where the targets have been, and that's got to continue. And obviously, that's going to change over time. It's the Ohio State's offense. It's always going to be the Ohio State's offense. So the slot is always a big part of what we do.
Great answer. Explained it perfectly. The film backs up everything he said, and that whole narrative can totally die. If anybody's got a problem with Brandon Innis, the problem is that they just want to see Miley Graham on the field. We know what's up, right? That's what it is. And everybody does. Miley Graham isn't the backup slot receiver. Bryson Rodgers is, Brandon's dad. But Bryson is electric. He's slick. He's really good. However, if you got a slot receiver who's not getting a ton of targets, what's his primary job? His primary job is to run routes, diversions, and block, right? BI is a beast. BI will knock you out. Bryson, a little bit skinnier, a little bit frail. Now, here's my issue with this entire argument. A slot receiver is a slot receiver. Then you have Jeremiah Smith. And what you've got here is your quarterback who is very attached to throwing it to Jeremiah Smith, which is exactly what you want as a fan. I'm not understanding why anybody would say, I would much rather him throw it to the slot. I want a more dynamic slot. Okay. If that was happening, right? If you had Jeremiah Smith on this team and Julian came in and instead of throwing it to JJ, he was focused on throwing to the slot, or Jeremiah caught 9 balls the other day. What if 4 of those went to the slot? Jeremiah only catches 5. Nobody's happy about that. Who's happy about that? No, you want the best guy in football with the ball in his hands, not some slot receiver. I don't care who it is at slot. Anyway, Hartline obviously is very much, Ron just texted me. I thought he was texting me about what I just said. I just mentioned him and he just texted me. He's not watching. It was about something else. Anyway, the tight ends, right? I saw you guys talking about the tight ends. Here we go with Rum. Rum says the tight end usage not hurting anything, makes defense respect a different aspect of our offense, which is true. It's definitely true. It can be a little bit of overkill. He is, 42% in 12 or 13 personnel is a lot. Now, there definitely are some drawbacks. I think there's a lot of benefits too. I am a little more old school, and then I do love the rough and tough tumbleness of the tight end. And I've kind of been clamoring for more tight end usage forever. But every time you bring in another tight end, you're pulling a wide receiver off the field. In addition, when you bring in tight ends to run in short yardage situations, right? Let's say I'm only running 11 personnel and I've got wide receivers split out. I'm relying on this run where I got to get 2 or 3 yards. I'm relying on these 5 guys to do their job, right? They got to win their job up front and my back can go get his yards. All right. Now, what if I bring in 3 tight ends? Now we're bringing them in, which in turn brings the defenders in. Now I'm relying on 8 guys right up front in this cluster to do their job. Now, I'd rather take my odds with 5 guys all doing their job than 8. One of them screws up. Like, it's just, you're condensing everything in there, all the defenders as well. So I do like, in some instances, let's spread that out a little bit. I think both are great. I love a healthy mix. And I ultimately think that's where this is going, with a healthy mix. And what we're seeing is they know how to do everything else. What we're seeing is them work on this with more tight ends in these early games. And then I do think we will back off of that. We won't see it quite as much. But I'm sitting here next to Tony Gurdeman yesterday. This dude is so funny, man. Here's what he asked Hartline.
In your mind, we're thinking, boy, I hope I've got 5 tight ends and I can run a bunch of 12, 13, and 14 personnel when time comes.
Probably wasn't on my on my checklist. I was probably trying to see how many wideouts I could store on the field at one time. But there's growth. There's growth, right? I got out of my own little world. But, yeah, we have a heck of a room. We've kind of talked about that. And ultimately, it's got to progress. Where do we go from there? We're not going to be in a world where we live in 13 and 14 personnel, but when it's an advantage, we're going to use that advantage. And we feel really confident about our groups, both up front and the tight end group. So, but yeah, I mean, we just the more you can do, the more you got to plan on, right? The more you do week to week, the more they have to prep for it. And as long as there's no fall off from group to group, advantage the Buckeyes.
Advantage the Buckeyes. And he's right. The more they got to prep for, the more they got to look out for, just like Patricia. These guys are so versatile on both sides of the ball now. They're like probably a nightmare to prep for, a nightmare. If you're playing the Buckeyes, if they're on your schedule, you're working on them 3 games in advance. You're doing a little bit at a time. So when you get to game week, I mean, it's just so much. They're doing so much stuff. It's just amazing. And this is the benefit, one of the benefits of not just having great coaching, but focusing in your recruiting and your talent acquisition on really smart, dedicated kids, and not just saying, well, that guy's a little more talented, I'm going to get him. It goes deeper than just guys that don't go break the law, right? It goes deeper than that. You can't do this with a bunch of boneheads. You've got smart, dedicated dudes here to be able to learn all this crap and implement it. Now, let's get to the class of 2026. The class of 2026 has been absolutely trashed, destroyed for everything it doesn't have, everything it does not have. I want to go over something it does have. Now, if we go back to the classes of 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, nothing but top 5 classes, right? The class of 2026 is not. It is not a top 5 class. It will not be a top 5 class. It'll be at the back end of the top 10, probably finish 9th, maybe 10th. Now, here's the criteria for what I'm about to tell you. The criteria is to be a 5-star, 1 service, whether that be 247 On3 Rivals, ESPN, or the On3 composite, the 247 composite, just one. One of them needs to give you a 5-star ranking, and it needs to be at the end of the class, right? Can't be like at one point you were a 5-star. End of the class, you are a 5-star by 1 service. If that happens, you are now a 5-star. You get it forever. That's how it works. My question to you is, how many 5-stars on average do you think Ohio State averaged in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025? How many? What is the number? Do you got your number? All right, we're going to go through it. In 2022, they had two 5-stars. Sonny, every service had him as a 5-star, and CJ Hicks, every service had him as a 5-star. So 2 in 2022. In 2023, 2. Brandon Innis, Rivals, Carnell Tate, 247 and Rivals, 2 5-stars in 22, 2 in 23. In 2024, 5. Jeremiah Smith, every single one. Edric Houston, just Rivals, surprisingly. He was at one point by more of the services, but dropped. Aaron Noland, Rivals. Mylan Graham, 247 composite, and Aaron Scott, 247 composite. So you had 5 in 24. In 2025, you had 4. Tavian St. Clair, every service. Devin Sanchez, every service. Riley Pettijohn, Rivals. Quincy Porter, on 3 and 247. So what is the average in the previous 4 classes heading into 2026? 3.25. 3.25 5-stars a cycle. Now, let's move on to what the class of 2026 does have, because I did a little video about this. I even wrote an article about this. And it takes me a very long time to write an article. Like that's when something really means something to me. But I want to go over some good news about this class of 2026. And it is at the top end of this class. So what does everybody wish for as an Ohio State fan at the beginning of a recruiting class? What's everybody focused on? Every single year, it's the same thing. You know that there's going to be a great wide receiver, maybe 2. You know that if there's a quarterback need, there's going to be a great one, right? everybody wants a 5-star primetime edge rusher and a 5-star offensive tackle. Those are the two at the top of the wish list. They get talked about all cycle, every cycle. Those are the guys that consistently cost the most money. They are the most desirable guy. They're the rarest body types, and they are the most desirable. Ohio State has to go against the best of the best in the country to get them. It's incredibly hard, and it's tough. Now, when is the last time that we have seen a 5-star edge rusher and a 5-star tackle in the same class for the Buckeyes? It didn't even happen in 2021. 2021, the best class ever. Now, you had 2 5-star edge rushers in Jack and JT in that class. You had a 5-star guard in Donovan, but no tackle. In 2020, you had Paris Johnson, a 5-star tackle, no 5-star edge rusher. You got to go back to 2019. 2019, Zach Harrison, my gosh, man, I thought that guy was going to be something. A bit of a bust for how he came in, but nonetheless, he's in the NFL making plays. And Harry Miller, offensive tackle out of Tennessee, was a 5-star tackle per the 247 composite. So 2019, you got your edge, you got your tackle, and that is the last time that that's been done. Now, let's talk about the positivity in the 2026 class. We talked the other day about edge rusher Kari Wilder out of Junipero Serra in California. Earned his 5th star via Rivals. And Rivals, for those of you who are not keeping up on things in that world, that's On3. They merged with Rivals. This is now the biggest. It has the most money behind it, the biggest investment, and these are the rankings that are opposite 247. This isn't Rivals like Yahoo Rivals, which was garbage in years past. This is now real deal Rivals. They just decided to use the Rivals name. So Kari Wilder, now a 5-star, the number 14 player in the country. He absolutely deserves it. And what we saw this cycle was a lot of public misses from the Buckeyes, right? Luke Waffle, Carter Meadows, KJ Ford, on and on it could go. In Ohio State, when they first went out to visit Kari Wilder, he was a 4-star top 250 overall recruit. And it was very, very clear by how they handled Kari Wilder. He was being pursued by Notre Dame, UCLA, Washington. The Buckeyes absolutely knew that this dude was not a top 250, not a top 50, but a top 15 type of dude. They knew that he was that kind of guy, and we could see it in how they went about his recruitment because they got this guy to commit in 1 week. 1 week, 3 days before his scheduled visit to Notre Dame. They knew what they had. They put the screws to him, the full court press, and they locked him down. Didn't let Notre Dame get their paws on him. Didn't wait for him to go to the Rivals 5-star camp and destroy everybody. And then Alabama and Georgia came calling. They locked him down immediately. And then everybody found out when he went to the Rivals camp, when he embarrassed Felix Ojo so bad that Ojo was tweeting he was sorry and he's better than this after it. Just a huge win for the good guys. When we talk about Kari Wilder and you look at what Caden Curry is doing this year, that's Kari. That's Kari's role right there. That's him. All across the line, mad dogging, just like Caden Curry. That's what we got coming in. So beautiful, beautiful. And when we look at the 5-star edge rushers in this class, right? Richie Wesley, Carter Meadows, Luke Waffle, Rodney Dunham, Zion Ellie. Like these guys were household names the entire time. Ohio State got one of those guys, right? There are, out of the top 15 guys, 7 of them are edge rushers. That's how desirable those guys are because they're so rare. And all those guys that Ohio State very publicly missed out on over money, right? The Buckeyes went out of their comfort zone for Luke Waffle. They couldn't get him. USC came back and offered more. And it's like, well, what are you going to do, man? You can't just keep letting him drive the price up. So he's off to USC. They won Kari Wilder by out-evaluating everybody. And that, to me, much harder to do than outspending everybody. And then he went and actually earned his 5th star, which just feels even cooler. Now, I love that. And as much as I love that, I don't love it as much as this because my dude Sam Greer, right down the street here at Hoban, is now, in the most recent update that came out on Monday, the 17th ranked player in the country. Does not have his 5th star yet because they roll those out in waves, and his will be the next wave. The next wave. Now, he went to that rivals camp as well, the one that Kari Wilder destroyed everybody and won the MVP. Sam was number 2. He dominated dudes. First off, he weighed in, right? They got official registered measurements, 6'6.5", 320 pounds. Everybody by now has seen him on the basketball court. He moves like a dancing bear. And when he's having a great season so far. He's so much better. He's so much better. When they roll out the next round of 5 stars, Sam gets his. And there's no doubt in my mind he's not dropping down. Like, this is over. It's not official, but it's official. It's official here in JUCK Studios. Sam Greer is getting that 5th star. And the Buckeyes have pulled it off. Something they haven't done since 2019. The 2 most desirable positions on the entire roster that everybody wants every year in this class of 2026. They got it done. And they got it done thanks to some great evaluations and a homegrown dude that they didn't let get out of state. So you got the 2 5 stars exactly where you want them. How'd they do on that average? 3.25 is the average, right? Well, you got Sam, you got Kari. What else do you got? We got Chris Henry Jr. That's a 5 star. He's a 5 star by On3, the industry, the ESPN ranking. And then Blaine Bradford is still just hanging on. He's been dropping at a couple, but the 247 composite still has Blaine Bradford as a 5 star. So the class of 2026 not only has the offensive line, offensive tackle 5 star, the edge 5 star. You've also got the wide receiver as per usual. You've also got the safety, and you've also beaten the average. The average is 3.25 over the last 4 cycles. You got 4. So it's above the average with 5 stars. It's exactly at the most valuable positions, the game-breaking wide receiver, offensive and defensive line, and now the fad, right? It is a fad to go get that freak show safety, that difference maker safety. Caleb Downs, we can credit him for some of this, but this is the rage around the country. These guys' value is shooting way up. A lot of people disappointed about Braylon Womack. I'll be honest. I loved Braylon. I like Bradford better. I think Braylon is excellent, but I like my safety with a little more attitude and anger and hitting ability. It's just a personal preference. They're both great players. Bradford, not quite as shifty and smooth, a little more leaning towards the linebacker-ish side, right? He's just a little more of a beef. But I'll tell you what, smart, loves football, loves Ohio State. Every time he comes up and they show a picture of him in Ohio State, the dude's eyes are just like he's with a girl. You know, when you're with a girl that's making your heart beat fast, that's what he looks like. And I love seeing that, especially a kid from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Like, it's cool as hell. Now, in addition to those 5 stars, why don't we run down the rest of this class that is so maligned, right? Just the top part. Because people are under the impression, because it's the 9th ranked class, that it's a trash class. We've talked about the 4 at the top. Let's continue. Number 5, Glenville linebacker Sincere Johnson. I saw Sincere at Massillon opening night of the season. He's so good, man. He's a true middle linebacker who is really fast. He's orchestrating everything. He's smart. He's a hammer. James Laurinaitis loves him. That's not going to go wrong. Simeon Caldwell, safety out of Florida, Tim Walton's nephew. Most believe he eventually becomes a linebacker. He's 6'2", 205. Safety right now, he's been telling me for over a year, he doesn't care. He likes playing both positions. He plays more linebacker in high school right now. I do think eventually he ends up in James Laurinaitis' room. Cornerback Jordan Thomas out of Bergen Catholic in New Jersey, Quincy Porter's high school. Also, Quincy's little brother is Brian Porter, has an offer. He's a wide receiver out of Bergen Catholic. They've also got a tremendous defensive end. So Vito Campanelli the coach out there at Bergen Catholic, loves Ohio State, and we got a little pipeline in there, which is fantastic. But when we look at Jordan Thomas, he was the Buckeyes' #1 corner on the board. He's now a top 100 player, another big corner at 6'1", 190. Buckeyes desperately need him, low on corners. So fantastic get, total stud football player. Caden Dixon-Wyatt, another borderline top 100 player, a freak show wide receiver, absolute impact player. Max Riley, offensive lineman out of Avon, will be a stalwart offensive lineman. Favor Aki, running back out of Delaware, top 200 overall player, very talented back. Interesting running style. Excited to have him. Then you got Damari Simeon. Damari Simeon, defensive tackle out of New Jersey, St. Augustine, very underrated prospect who is a 218 composite overall type guy. But I actually agree with Rivals' internal ranking that has him as the 63rd overall player and the number 5 defensive tackle in the country. Ridiculous strength, super speedy get off, aggressive, just a motor that won't quit, chasing down plays on the backside. This is the guy that's going to come in as a freshman and get some playing time like Jarquez Carter next year. And that right there was the top half of the class. Where this class gets that fall off, because that top half looks just like 25. It falls off in the second part, the bottom 10. We talk about the bottom 10 often. We also talk about Ohio State killing evaluations. So you tell me whose evaluations you trust more when we get to the lower end guys. Do we trust the services, or do we trust the guys that went out and saw Kari Wilder and locked him down in a week, and then the rest of the country caught up afterwards? Oh, wait, this is actually a top 10 kid in the country. You got to ask yourself that. I can tell you I've evaluated all these guys myself. I think Ohio State absolutely destroyed the evaluation process in the class of 26. The bottom 10 guys in a class, if you have 3 of them who end up as contributors over the long haul on your roster, you win, right? You did a great job. Just 3. I think that there are going to be 5 or 6 out of that bottom 10 that end up being long-term contributors for this class. And if that happens, this class that on paper was a top 9 class, if you hit at the top and you get 5 of them who just become contributors, stick around, don't leave, don't transfer, you won. Then it's more like a top 5 class when it's all said and done, where it really matters on the field. Anyway, let's go to the chat, see what you guys got to say about it, my friends. Also, let's go ahead and like the show, because just why not, right? We do that for our pals. Man, I need a drink. Have I been yelling, guys? I feel like I've been loud. Rod said, I thought Miller was from Georgia. Miller who? Not BP Miller, right? Like and subscribe, says Tone. That's my man. That's my man's Tony. Did you hear Tony's question? Tony got a good sense of humor, I got to tell you. Okay, great question, Woody's. Woody says, what's the over-under for years that Matt P sticks around? Wonder if any 2026 flips shake loose, or new 2027 prospects with the new defensive style. That's a great point. That is a fantastic point. You got a lot of guys who are sitting here watching this now, right? Guys who otherwise weren't coming to Ohio State, right? Now they're watching how this defense is being played. They're watching Arvell Reese. The freakiest dudes are watching Arvell going, yo, I want to play the Arvell role. Now, you got TJ Alford. There are some guys who would be better suited, who would be freakier athletes. That is a really great point. So I love the thought. I love the way you're thinking. Matt P, I was just talking to Dylan Davis. We were talking about this yesterday. We're both very scared, right? We're both very scared. He's doing such a great job. What if this is very successful and we see the chip thing again, right? I don't think we're going to see that. Personally, he certainly seems like he's really happy, but then again, so did Chip at this point, right? I think that might have seemed to fade a little bit down the end there. But seems like his family's happy, and that's something Chip didn't have, right? Chip's married, but he doesn't have like kids. So I'm gonna put the number at 2.5. 2.5 years for Matt P. guaranteed next year he's going to be back, in my opinion. The question is, will he be back year 3? What do we think, guys? Hey, Lisa, how you doing? Fisherman said, I bet Justin Hill regrets his decision going to Alabama now. That role built for Justin Hill, the Arvell role. He would just be perfect for it. Absolutely perfect for it. So, there we go. We have hit my hour, guys. Merce says part of the 13 personnel is protect a redshirt freshman quarterback early. Yeah, I don't think that we are going to see that as much as we saw it against Ohio again, but maybe 1 or 2 times this year. It was super extra excessive, and I would be really surprised if we see that again. That much. All right, friends. I do appreciate you joining me today. We will go, I think, on Saturday for the Nebraska-Michigan game. We're going to live stream that game. We're going to live stream that game, not the game, during the game, where we, like we did last week for the Buckeyes game, just watch the game and talk some crap. But I'm very interested in that game. I want to see Dylan Raiola, Bryce Underwood, and we are all big Red fans, because I know one thing, there's none of you who can say this time, I'm rooting for the Big Ten, right? So we're all going to be on the same page for that one. Okay. It's 2 Big Ten teams. So, join me over at JUCK on Bucks on Saturday for that one. And check us out over on Buckeye Huddle. We've got, I got a new recruiting article, with some updates as to a couple targets that the Bucks are going after or keeping an eye out on here in a few new offers as well. So appreciate you guys so much for joining us. Please subscribe, like the video. We appreciate you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Buckeye Huddle out. Hey, it's Chuck. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country. Start.